The federal government is facing heat over the use of foreign workers at a Canadian battery plant, one that's costing billions of Canadian taxpayer dollars.
Will the Prime Minister release the contract so we find out how many Canadian tax dollars are going to foreign replacement workers?
His uncontrollable urge to make everything a partisan issue means he's not supporting the investments that are going to help in Windsor, in St. Thomas, in Quebec, or elsewhere across the country.
NextStar Energy says it expects up to 900 foreign workers to help build the flagship electric vehicle battery plant in Windsor, Ontario, sparking outcry from some MPs and trade unions over the threat that poses to potential Canadian jobs. Now, the plant is currently being built and will operate with up to $15 billion in subsidies from the federal and Ontario governments, making it the largest investment in the history of Canada's auto sector. Lana Payne is the national president of UNIFOR. She joins me now. Lana, it's good to see you again.
Thanks for having me, David.
So we heard Minister Champagne say there's a lot of misinformation out there. We heard Radney Boissonnault say that NextStar needs to sit down with Labour and clear the air about what's happening with the temporary foreign workers at this plant. What is your understanding of the role temporary foreign workers are going to play in the operations of this?
Yeah, we've had a lot of discussions, obviously, with Stellantis. We have a labor relations relationship with them, and our goal as a union is also to make sure that we represent the production workers at that battery plant when it's completed. Obviously, there has been a lot of confusion. I think it's important that the air is cleared, but I also think that this needs to be put into some context too, David, about how we got to this place. And, you know, we believe that you have to maximize Canadian jobs, both in the construction side and the production side of this facility. But we obviously have some rules around these things, and one of them is obviously the trade agreements that the Harper Conservatives negotiated themselves, which is causing a bit of a problem here.
But on this, like we were told when this announcement was made, when the deal was done, 2,500, I believe, manufacturing jobs once it's fully operational,
yes.
About 1,500, give or take, construction jobs. There was never any mention of 900 temporary foreign workers coming in to do anything. So do they come out of those totals? Are they in addition to those totals? How do they fit into this?
Yeah, these folks are in addition, and they're also coming in through the trade agreement. So it is under the mobility provisions of the trade agreement is our understanding. It's not temporary foreign workers in the case of coming in under that program.
Right.
We have a number of programs in Canada, and I think, you know, if you want to be honest with Canadians here, and I would encourage politicians to do that, then, you know, a lot of these things were okay forever. And our union, for example, argued repeatedly about, you know, bad trade deals. We did it during the Harper era, particularly because every other week there was a trade deal being negotiated that had an impact on Canadian jobs and negatively, including auto jobs. And some of those provisions were labor mobility provisions, which we're dealing with right now.
Okay, so the 900 jobs, whatever the final number is on this is in addition to the 2,500 and the 1,500, so there's no loss there. But we do have people like Sean Strickland, who's with Canada's Building Trades Union, saying that the work these workers will do, temporary foreign workers, lowercase t, not through the program.
Yes.
He says it's going to cost Canadian skilled construction workers about $300 million in wages and contractor fees. What's your reaction to that?
Well, those are Sean's numbers, and I think I would agree with the minister and the statement that you just made earlier in that it is important. And by the way, I've had a couple of conversations with Sean about this whole thing, so to be transparent about that. And I do think it's important that the company sits down with the building trades, has a discussion about the scope of this project. We all know we have never had a battery plant in Canada before. There is going to need to be some kind of expertise transfer that will have to occur. There's no doubt about that. Whether it's 900 positions or not, then I think that's what you work out in those conversations.
But I wonder, because this is a new industry for the country. This
Absolutely,
is the first of its kind here. So there's no existing sort of plant to borrow a template from. So the argument coming from the companies is that this is proprietary information, so they need to bring in their people, or proprietary equipment, excuse me, to set it up and train. Do you buy that? Is there any way Canadians could do this work at this point in time?
I think that's why the discussion needs to happen, David. For sure, there's going to be expertise there, and probably, you know, as you say, that kind of information that needs to be kept secret. But that doesn't necessarily mean Canadian workers can't be facilitating and working with this. We're also going to have to train Canadian workers to be working on this equipment that is going to be here in Canada. So the reality is, on any kind of industrial strategy, which is what our union has been fighting for, there are many elements of that. You get the government to invest. We're having momentum right now in this country, $25 billion. And this is what's concerning about this discussion is, let's get to the facts, because we are now playing politics with what is the biggest auto investment that we have seen in this country in 15 years. And it's important that we keep this momentum going.
Right, but it's Stellantis right now. Do you know, will we see similar arrangements with the Volkswagen gigafactory that's being built in St. Thomas? Could we see this with the Northvolt facility that's going to be built in Quebec? Do you think there are going to be other workers coming in from other countries to do a similar process of installation and training?
I think they have their own expertise, and they're going to want some of their own experts. How many of those folks are going to be needed? Who knows? I mean, I remember 40 years ago when we were building an offshore oil industry in Newfoundland and Labrador, it meant that we imported expertise because we had to learn it. Some of this is installation that maybe Canadian workers can do. The reality is these things can be worked out through a conversation and figuring out the full scope of this project. This is a massive project. You can imagine right now there are 1,500 or 2,000 construction workers. There's going to be 2,500 people working in that plant. It's huge. And we want to make sure that we do this right, because we're going to have another battery plant. We have what's going on in Quebec. Huge opportunities right now here for Canada. And I think the reality is what we've been seeing out of the Conservatives is a lot of playing politics with a very, very important project for Canada.
But are they wrong when they say that Canadian money is in effect subsidizing foreign workers?
Well, these are short-term jobs. Let's just be clear that the money is going towards the production of these jobs down the road. That's 2,500 permanent jobs, and also that battery plant was the linchpin for the auto assembly plant in Brampton and in Windsor. And I would say, get your facts right, and also be honest with people. Some of these programs are the very things that you created yourselves, and now this is coming home to roost.
So even if it is, I mean, the subsidies are what got this plant there. I mean, there's the workforce and a bunch of things about Canada that are attractive for investment. But, it was the federal and provincial money that made it competitive vis-a-vis the Inflation Reduction Act of the United States.
Absolutely.
So even if this is 900 jobs, 1,000 jobs, 1,600 is the high-end number we've heard, and we need that specificity and clarity to completely nail it down. Your argument is it's worth it because of the long-term industry.
What I'm saying is I don't know that it's 1,600. I think that's misinformation.
Right, yeah.
I don't know that it's 900. This is the speculation that's out there. But the reality is these would be very short-term positions in terms of technology transfer, installation if necessary. And in the end, we're going to have a massive product, a massive plant that will employ the next generation of auto workers in this country, which is incredibly important.
Lana Payne, National President of UNIFOR. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.